Hello?
I'm here.
Hello? Who is this?
This is Jonathan Martin, one of the two hosts of Game Life Balance U.S.
I don't remember you.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a
I remember
very.
that good-looking chap Cody with his hair.
So it's been a long. It has been a long time. It has been a very long time. Can you believe that we had our first black president since we were gone, and then Donald Trump was elected president 37 years ago? Can you believe that happened since we've been gone on hiatus?
That's roughly how long it's been. You went on hiatus. I tried. Well, I didn't try very hard, but I did a couple episodes while you were gone. But if my records are correct, you have not actually been on your own podcast for nearly 5 months.
I believe June. That would be about 11 fortnights, right? I'm trying to bring it into the zeitgeist of current video games.
Well, I'm not. Oh gosh, I don't even know how many zeitgeists that is. That's probably 3 zeitgeists, 12
Okay.
fortnights.
Well, one Scaramucci is 10 days. So if we've got 6 months, that's roughly 180 days. That's about 18 Scaramuccis, right?
Okay. Yeah. And if it's 3 fortnights, then how many Overwatches is that?
I started playing Overwatch. I should add that to the list.
You should add that to the show notes.
We have a lot to talk about.
Of the episode that, I didn't tell you either. I have to be done by 9:15. So this won't be.
This is perfect then.
A hour-long extravaganza.
Okay,
We really, when you come back, we can only celebrate with 37 to 47 minutes of joy. That's about it. Will you please explain yourself, John? Where have you been? Why did you go away? Why did you leave our listeners hanging?
So for those of you that tuned in the last time that I was here, you probably remember, maybe you don't remember, but my wife was pregnant.
Pray go.
I think now I'm supposed to say we were pregnant, right? Isn't it? It's a communal thing now.
Did you say that? Have you?
I did. No, we did.
Okay.
We did say that when we were talking about the pregnancy. We definitely said that to people that like we're pregnant. That's just. I think it's. And I don't know if I didn't know if it was a Minnesota thing because they do some weird stuff up here and they say some weird things. But I think it might kind of be just a generally accepted colloquialism now that you say we are pregnant because it's a joint effort. I played about a 50% role in that entire pregnancy. That's not true. It wasn't even actually close to 50%. But my wife was pregnant. We were pregnant, and she had our baby 6 weeks early. So we were not prepared at the time when it happened in June.
Not only did your new child arrive 6 weeks early, but if I recall correctly,
we had recorded that night.
This labor began about 2 hours after we finished recording the last episode you were on.
That's right. So it was
that 1 hour?
No, it was that night. I think my wife believes that you did play some part in that. So well done.
I think I like to believe that too.
Yeah.
And that's why you named your son Cody, obviously. Cody.
That's right. That's right.
Actually, Balance Martin.
Actually, that name wasn't on the list. So we'd had some other friend names on the list. Cody was not one of them. Goff was, though. Goff Martin was a possibility for a name.
I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah. So I could tell you the story. I can tell it to you briefly if you'd like.
Is it good or is it a typical bad John story?
I would say it's better than a typical bad John story, but that doesn't make it good.
Briefly how'd it go, but then I want to hear what it's been like balancing Parent Balance Game Life U.S.
I'll go fast-ish. So it started back last August. I'm just kidding. So it was June 13th. We had just finished recording. It was actually June 12th. We had just finished recording an episode. Casey had been getting like really uncomfortable and had been sleeping down on the couch because she needed like support on her back, right? Because she was just very uncomfortable all the time. So she was downstairs and I was upstairs. It was about 12:30 at night. Obviously, Max is in bed in his bedroom, and I get a phone call from her. I'm obviously in bed and she's calling me on my phone and she goes, I think my water just broke. And I said, oh, okay. So I walked downstairs and sure enough, her water had definitely broken. And so we got some towels and stuff and got everything kind of situated. And we called her mom and said, hey, Cindy, like, this is kind of the situation right now. We need you over here ASAP. And her mom, God love her, was over there as fast as she could be in like an hour. Max
Wait,
never
is her mom like a doctor or something?
No, but we had Max sleeping. So we didn't want to wake up and bring Max to the hospital if we didn't have to. And we were just kind of going based on our first labor, which Casey was in labor for 28 hours or something like that. So we just assumed we had like plenty of time, right? So Cindy comes over and she got there in about an hour. And at this point, Casey's already having some pretty considerable contractions. And so it's like, we have to go. Like, we have to go immediately now because this baby is coming very soon. And so we go to the hospital, which is thankfully like 10 to 15 minutes away. And they wheel us, we go to the maternity ward and they check us in. And Casey's pretty miserable at this point because she's having pretty regular contractions. And we get into the kind of like it's the intake room. So it's this tiny little room with, a bed, a single chair by the bedside. And it has enough room for probably two attendants in there. It's just, it's meant to like check you in, get your initial vitals, get your initial examination. They have them like check your cervix, things like that. Not my cervix. They didn't check my cervix. I felt kind of gypped by this, but they checked her cervix. So anyway, that's what this room is for.
Well, I had checked your cervix on the podcast earlier.
Right. And so that's why I wasn't that slighted and I didn't bring it up during the actual examination. So they got done with the initial assessment and the OBGYN came in and she was like, well, you are already at basically a 10. And for those of you that have had kids that are listening to this podcast, 10 is the most dilated that a woman will be before a baby comes out. It basically means the baby is coming like imminently. And also she was 100% effaced, which again is a term related to pregnancy. But it basically means that it's like time. It's go time. She hadn't had any pain meds, nothing. So the doctor was like, well, I think we're going to have a baby like right now. Like, and I mean like right now, like in this tiny little room right now. So Casey and I look at each other because this is very unlike our first birth story. The first birth story went for 28 hours. She pushed for like 6 of it. And then we ended up getting a C-section anyway. So this was a little bit unexpected for us. So she said, all right, we're going to like start pushing. And Casey said, I guess that's what we do. So she was like, all right, the next contraction, push. So Casey had a contraction. She pushed really hard. And then the doctor came back in and checked again. And she's like, well, actually, you're not quite 100% yet. We're going to need to give it a little time. Like, what do you want to do? So originally we had a scheduled C-section because Casey had a C-section with the original, with our first kiddo. And that's kind of what they do. After a first C-section, if you can elect to have a C-section the next time. That is something you can do in the world of pregnancy and giving birth.
In Minnesota, which is not every state.
I think most places.
All right.
So we had a scheduled C-section for, like 5 weeks down the road. Because remember, we're 6 weeks early in terms of when our kiddo's coming. So we go, okay, well, like, let's do the C-section, Ben, because like we have the time now. They can like at least give her Casey pain meds. And she was, she wanted the C-section. So they wheeled us in, got us all set up. It was very familiar to the first time when we had the C-section, and they started giving her, anesthetic. They did like a nerve block. They did a nerve block, which they do in C-sections to kind of paralyze you from the waist down, so you can't feel anything because obviously they're cutting you open, or like from the belly button down. And they started the C-section process, and everything was going fine. Henry came out. He was like. He looked healthy. He was pink. He was crying, which that's the biggest thing you're concerned about at a 34-week gestation is like their lungs not being fully developed. But he came out crying, a little gurgly, but they were like, hey, he's good. But when it's a preemie like that, they have to basically take him away immediately. So they're like, okay, Dad, like come over here, say hi, and now we have to go. That was pretty much how
Yikes.
that happened. So um, that was pretty standard. There were like nothing in that like minute and a half that I had next to Henry. They were basically like, he looks great, everything looks fine. We have no reason to worry at all. He did well on his APGAR scores, which is something that they use to assess breathing. So we have to take him to the NICU just to make sure he's okay, hook him up and everything, but he looks great. So they took him out. Casey was like totally out of it at this point because she's drugged up. Um, and she was just like, is he like okay? That was kind of the conversation we had in 2 sentences, and then that was it. It was about the last time we talked for a while. So they said, okay, well, we're going to start putting you back together again. Because basically, when they do a C-section, they open up the woman, they take out all of the organs, then they open up the uterus, take out the baby, cauterize the uterus, put it back together again, then put all the organs back in, and then sew you up. That's basically how a C-section works. So they were in the process of putting her organs back in, and Casey started violently throwing up. Like violently throwing up. And she threw up so hard that they had to put her under because the doctor couldn't sew her up because every time that she threw up, basically her organs tried to come out that they were trying to kind of put back in and sew up. So they put her out, and obviously she stopped vomiting right away. But they had her sewed up in like 10 minutes after that. Like that was done very quickly. But they said, we are afraid that she aspirated when she vomited when we were putting her under, which is where you vomit and then kind of breathe it into your lungs, which can be a medical emergency. So they said, okay, we are going to take her to the ICU, and you're going to need to wait for us to kind of get her all set up. But like they're like, you need to leave the room. Is what happened. So it was like, I don't know if you've ever watched any medical dramas, but in like an emergent situation, if a family member is there, they like usher them out of the room and very quickly close the blinds, that kind of thing. It's kind of what happened at the very tail end of this whole situation. So they pushed me out of the room. The nurse came and she like said, all right, you're going to have to leave right now. We'll update you as soon as we have any updates, while they're like, sewing Casey back together. So I go out into the waiting room. And about 15 minutes later, a nurse comes out and she's like, okay, like she's stabilized. Here's what happened. We think she might have aspirated. We had to put her under because we couldn't put her back together again. We're going to need to take her into the ICU tonight. We're going to leave her sedated, as in under anesthesia, until tomorrow morning when we can have like our ICU doctor come through and take a look at her and see how she's doing. And I said, okay, that's like kind of scary. Is she okay? And they're like, yeah, she's stable. She's okay. We're going to move her up to the ICU. You just need to go up there. It's like 4 a.m. at this point. And obviously I'm pretty like jacked up on adrenaline. So, and I hadn't seen her and I hadn't seen Henry yet. So they said, you need to go to the NICU and take a look at Henry, spend a little time with him. And then as soon as we kind of get Casey set up, we'll let you know and we'll come down and get you, because they didn't want me to go into the ICU room because they had to set her up with like 10 nurses had to go in there and a doctor had to go in there and kind of like get her situated in this room. So I said, this is like really cool. This feels like an ideal situation. So I went to the NICU. I hung out with Henry for a while. I couldn't touch him. Basically, even when he was stable already, but he was hooked up to a ventilator. To help him breathe a little bit. And there's basically like a day limit. They're like, we need to wait a day basically before you can touch him because we need to make sure that he's stabilized and he's okay. So I just kind of got to hang out with him and look at him a little bit. And he was just asleep. He was chill. And then somebody came down and got me, I think. I don't remember this super clearly, but somebody came down and got me. They're like, all right, she's like almost ready to go into the ICU. Go ahead and come upstairs. So I went upstairs because the ICU was on the floor above us. And they sat me down in the ICU waiting room. And they're like, okay, she's like, they're just stabilizing her in the room, like getting her situated in the room. We'll be done soon. And then you can come in. So I waited there and I waited for like another half an hour or 45 minutes. And it's like 5:30 in the morning at this point. And they said, okay, finally, you can come in. And I got in there, and Casey was just on it. She was intubated, which is where they have the tube down your throat into your lungs to help you breathe.
God.
She was totally out. She was on some pretty heavy medication, right, to be out. And they're like, she's totally stable. Everything is fine. Like, you're good. Basically, everything is going to be all right. And they had set up a bed for me in the room, and I sat down, and within like probably 5 minutes, 3 minutes maybe, I was asleep. And I woke up at about 10:30 in the morning, and Casey's mom was there, just in the room. And I like turned over and freaked out because it was a pretty like everything kind of happened very quickly in my head in terms of like, oh my God, like I remember exactly what happened last night now. And Casey was still out. And what they were waiting for the doctor to come through, do the grand rounds on everybody, and then come in and make the call to extubate her, which only the doctor could do. So eventually the doctor got in there. It was around 11 or 11:30. They're like, all right, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to take her off of drugs because we need her to wake up and like be cognizant of where she is and awake before we extubate her. And we need to make sure she can breathe on her own. So we're going to leave the tube in her throat for like 30 minutes. So she had to wake up and then be intubated for 30 minutes while awake. So they woke her up, and she was very uncomfortable, but she was also totally out of it. I mean, like totally out of it. And the first thing that she asked was, is our baby okay? We hadn't named him at that point. She was like, is he okay? I was like, yep, he's great. Everything's good. He's in the NICU. They're watching him. He's perfect. He's great. And then the very next thing that she had me do, and she's writing this down on notes, she's like, can you call my CEO? And I was like, I guess if that's like the next thing you need me to do, yep, I sure can. So she gives me her phone, and she has me call her CEO at work. And her CEO was like, is she okay? Is everything okay? And I was like, yeah. She's fine. We had kind of a wild night. I'll have her call you when she can update you. She's okay. That was like the conversation that we had. And
wait, did her CEO not know? Well, I mean,
no,
she hadn't left
work
yet because she was not on maternity leave because the baby
was not expected to have the baby. Right, exactly.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of surreal. And then they finally extubated her. At that point she had like woken up, and she was completely with it, very uncomfortable. They extubated her. She had a very froggy throat, like croaky voice. And we basically immediately, as soon as we were given the okay, went down and hung out with Henry. And then we just kind of, over the course of it was a week of Henry in the NICU before we could take him home. And they had us stay in the hospital. They have a boarding program where they've got an empty room. You can just stay there for free if you've got a kid in the NICU, which is really cool. A lot of hospitals do that. And so we just hung out in that room, and we went down and hung out with Henry whenever we could, and got Casey up and moving around. And then we went home, and everything was good.
They should really set up a podcast studio in that room, in that free room. And then that way, like if you're staying for a week because you got a kid,
I had all this time. That's a really good point. All this time,
we could have pounded out 3 months of episodes. No one would have missed you.
Yeah, in the can, as they say. We could have had them in the can.
Could have got some tape, put it on the cutting room floor, get it in the can.
I don't know those. I knew in the can. That's what I knew. And so that's what I did. You had like 3 kids when I was gone.
7.
You had 7 kids in even more eventful 6 months. I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah,
but it is. It is. Yeah. It's impressive.
Well, one is a detective already.
A
Detective Pikachu.
A Detective Pikachu. That trailer did drop. That was my life. That was my life for that night. And then, we'll talk about this once we start to actually get into balancing. But talking about balancing. But I got to play a lot of video games, especially like even on maternity leave and everything. But the reason why recording didn't happen is because with having a new baby, there's extra time. Like there's a normal amount of like free time, but it is punctuated very frequently with like distraction. So I was able to play video games, but I had to be able to put them down every 15 minutes, right? If I needed to. Like there was no stretch of time that I could sit and just kind of bullshit with you for an hour and a half, up to 6 hours, which is what this episode's going to be.
Yeah, 7.
Right. So it's this 7-hour episode we're about to record.
One for each kid that I've had.
Right. There just wasn't enough time ever up until the past couple of weeks to sit down with a big chunk of time and just kind of, kind of have that. So, yeah, like that's where we are now. Things are good.
In terms of your balancing act, your game life balance, was that your preferred way of unwinding during the early parenting process, or did you binge watch Netflix shows with Casey?
We did that. Casey slept a lot to recover. Also, just with nursing,
right?
Basically,
yeah, you must have been exhausted after all that nursing you had to do.
I was. Let me tell you, I still am. I am just drained, like both literally and figuratively.
Both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, exactly. Which literally means figuratively now. So I could have probably killed 2 birds with 1 stone and just said literally. I think I'll choose to say both. So yeah, I'm drained both literally and figuratively from the amount of nursing I've had to do.
Could you have killed those birds in the can? Or would you put them in the can or kill them with the can?
She slept basically any chance that she got. And so when she was sleeping, I was playing video games.
Got it. So solitary activities maybe more the default during the...
Except when she was, when she was awake and we were spending time together, or I was spending time with Henry, or etc., that obviously we were doing stuff together. I can't remember what shows we watched. We definitely watched some shows when she was on maternity leave, but they were not memorable because I literally can't even remember what we watched. The first maternity leave with Max, we watched like all of the first 2 seasons or 3 seasons of House of Cards. So that I remember very clearly, but that was also a very good show at the time.
I cannot believe you would say that. The star of that show is a rapist?
No, he is. He's a terrible person.
Wait, is that what he did?
He coerced young men into having sex with him.
Oh, God. I thought he just like harassed 1 or 2 people. Not that that's good, but that's a little less horrifying.
No, he coerced young men to have sex with him, or to give him oral sex, or to perform oral sex on them. I can't remember. Either way, he definitely raped some people.
Kevin Spacey's who we're talking about.
Yeah, he definitely raped some people. So
how did he not get whatever? That's a whole different thing.
But the thing is that show, because Hollywood is a gross place. That's why. It's a disgusting place. Harvey Weinstein can go for 45 years.
Yeah.
Like, he can't even remember the number of people. Anyway, so that show was great without that context. Now it's not. Like now it would be hard for me to watch that show and not kind of be able to frame it in that way.
Sure.
And feel good about watching it. But anyway,
it sounds to me like this maternity paternity leave was similar to your first one, but you also had the added dimension of having a 3-year-old?
Yes, 4-year-old.
He's 3? 4. He's 4, right?
He's 4.
So did that? I mean, how did that make it different? Because it sounds to me like you're like, okay, well, we slept when we could and we played video games in between, but that sounds like your first one. But you also have a 4-year-old. Is he just like so integrated into your life now, or like
no?
Maybe like
I mean,
self-sufficient or self-aware that you just don't need to? He
was in like a school program, and so he was gone for most of the days at that,
right?
At least for a while. We also had a nanny that was like so Henry was supposed to come at the end of July, early August, and Max was going to have a nanny the whole summer. Well, the nanny had started like just a couple of weeks previously, and then we had Henry. So we had this huge stretch of like our plans changed quite a bit because it was going to kind of be the nanny was going to be there for just a couple of weeks before actual school started for Max. And then I was going to be on paternity leave with Casey. Max would be at school every day, and it would just be us at home. Well, it obviously didn't work out that way. So we had the nanny over, kind of hanging out with Max, doing stuff with Max over the course of the day while I was helping with Henry. Was kind of
Got it.
what that looked like.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm just curious how you were balancing the games in your life and US. We balance all three of those things in this podcast.
Yes, I did balance the US as well.
Well, I'm glad your son is happy and healthy. Well, presumably happy.
He's crazy happy. He is. I remember Max being an easy baby. Henry is the easiest baby. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Just like sleeps a lot and smiles and giggles and doesn't scream as much.
Doesn't scream at all. Smiles and giggles all the time. He basically sleeps through the night. He'll wake up like one time now on some nights. Other nights he'll sleep through the night.
Wow.
He doesn't nap super well, but he never cries. So he's never upset. He never cries. He's just like hanging out. He's starting to get some teeth. And so there's a lot of drooling and gnawing on everything. Like everything he can get his hands on now. He also has, since the day he was born, has spit up basically every time he eats. So there's a lot of laundry. There was already going to be a lot of laundry, but now there's even more laundry. There's a lot of laundry.
All right. Now, I know that a lot of the new refrigerators these days have literal web browsers on the console, on the screen. You've seen this, right?
Is that true?
Yes, it is true.
Wait, really? Like they actually have web browser? Why would you need a web browser? So I know. Wait, why would you need a web browser?
I don't know. There are smart fridges with apps. I know that Chris from the Gonna Geek Network, from the Gonna Geek podcast, GonnaGeek.com podcast, has actually pulled up the GonnaGeek.com website on his refrigerator because I've seen pictures of it on the Discord.
Okay, so I knew that there were apps because you're supposed to be able to like see your what you have in your fridge, right? Like, or catalog it or something. So I knew that that was like a thing. I didn't know that you needed the internet on your fridge. What do you need it for? Is it you like put Netflix on your fridge while you're cooking or something?
Probably.
You watch TV on your fridge?
I don't know. That's what I was going to ask you, if you have a smart laundry machine where now you can play Hearthstone on a touchscreen interface.
One, I would not play Hearthstone. Period. I wouldn't play Hearthstone, period.
Neither would I.
Yeah.
Believe me,
So
I have not reinstalled it. Sorry, long-time listeners, you're not going to hear me relapse into more Hearthstone reviews.
No, so that's number one. Number two, we do not have any smart appliances. We don't have a single smart appliance. My appliances are dumb.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering if, because you know the game life appliance parenting United States balancing, out of those four things, it's all over the place. So
you, just so I'm clear, you have 10 minutes left, right?
Ish, 10 to 15.
One last thing I'll say, and then we can talk about me some more. Like having two kids I leave at 7:15 in the morning. I get back at about 6:15 every single day during the week. There's like a mad sprint to get both kids fed, kind of like hung out with a little bit, and then in bed by 7:30. And then there's like bottle washing and stuff that needs to happen after that. And then like the wind down for me is now between 8 and 8:15 to 10. And then it's bedtime at 10, up at 4. That's like, it is standard routine almost every single day of the week now, except for weekends, obviously. It is ingrained now. It is the way that it works. It is that is the way my world works now.
And you can function properly that way.
Yeah, I still run every day.
Yeah, you've been crushing it. Didn't you run like 10 miles or something? Like 20 miles?
I did. I ran 10. I did not run 20. Maybe
it's incredible.
20. I'll probably never run 20. But yeah, no, I ran 10. It was awesome.
Are you going to do a half marathon at any point?
I feel like that's about where I want to stop. I think that feels like, first of all, it feels like a goal that I'm close to. So I wouldn't need a ton of extra training. And second, I feel like I wouldn't want to try to go more than that. It's such a time commitment to do it.
Just practicing is like a 3-hour thing.
Yeah. And so I don't think I want to do that. Anyway, yeah. So I'm still like running every day, but there are days where I'm tired.
I feel like you are somehow able to fit more into your day than I am, and you have like kids.
But the tasks that I'm dealing with seem very like banal to your average person. I'm not going to things like bar trivia, right? Which I know is something you get to do
Sometimes.
frequently. Like I'm literally coming home. We scramble for dinner. We clean up, and then it's like an hour and a half to myself before bed, or with Casey before bed. I mean, it's like it is. It's a having kids is like it's a totally different world. It really is. It's a totally different world.
Yeah. So when you get away, it's like,
But you just like learn. You just learn to like you learn that is. I don't know. You would do anything for them. So it's like it's really hard to explain. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it's so like it's boring. I'm like a boring suburban dad is what I've turned. It's what I am. That's what I've like turned into. Like I get excited when I can go see a movie with friends like once a month. We like or my friends or friends come over and we watch a horror movie. Or Casey's been really good about because all of our friends don't live in Minnesota. She's been really good about letting people, my friends, come over for like a weekend here and there.
yeah, you had a second Martin Con.
I did.
Longtime listeners will know that John hosts impromptu informal gaming convention at his house once a year over Labor Day weekend.
Always over Memorial Day.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
And he announced a Martin Con too. So somehow you were able to host people in October, which I regrettably had to miss. I don't remember why.
Yeah, and it was actually Casey's idea. She was, she was like, I know you're missing Gen Con, so like you should do this.
Right. And you can listen to one of our more recent episodes, 2 or 3 episodes ago. I did do a full Gen Con board game review extravaganza. It was a solo episode. And I've got lots of links in our show notes. Those are all Amazon affiliate links, by the way. So if you listen to that episode and you purchase any of the games that I talk about from one of the links on gamelifebalance.us, then we will get
feeds directly into Cody's bank account. It just drops cash in there.
It helps
fat stacks
compensate for the web hosting costs of this podcast, which we have never broken even on. I spend like 50 or I spend between $50 and $100 a year on our web hosting, basically. So like I've never made that back. So since we started Unqualified, and you've given me, we've split it a few times, but like I just think I just stopped asking you for money at one point. But like between John and me, we have dumped like let's say between 50 and $100 a year on this podcast since Unqualified Gamers in like 2011 or something. 6 or 7 years. So probably like over the last decade or so, we probably sunk like $500 to $700 into the show, which is fine. We don't have advertisers. We've never like earned that back. So,
but if you want to be our advertiser, we're willing to shill.
We're totally willing to shill. Oh my God.
I'm willing to shill.
But at Gen Con, the Gen Con episode and the Martin Con episodes, like any board game review episodes we do, we're just talking about the games we love. And then I'll also throw the links in the show notes after the fact. But we're not like, it's not like we're picking what games to talk about because we're trying to sell them. I just, it's one leads to the other. So that was kind of a long, weird sales pitch thing there unnecessarily, but
I think what Cody's saying is if we tell you to buy something, it's because we love it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're not going to tell you to, unless you want us to shill for you, but we would tell you that up front if it was an actual advertisement, guys.
Yeah, it's actually a law, actually. So the daily podcast I do for curiosity.com, Curiosity Daily, cha-ching, that pays my bills. Listen to it. Like and subscribe. Curiosity Daily, we got some like notice from, I don't even know someone, but legally at the start of our advertisers now, we have to say today's episode is sponsored by. You have to do a very, very clear delineation. And that's why some shows you'll hear NPR actually puts different music beds underneath its ads. So if you're ever like, wow, this is blatantly an advertisement, that's because legally it has to really be obvious that it's an advertisement. So you would know if John and I were trying to sell you something, but we're not, because like I said, we're not making anything except for those Amazon links on gamelifebalance.us.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah. Speaking of, I mentioned Gonna Geek and maybe some other stuff. I want to give a quick shout out just in the middle of this episode. I got like 10 minutes. I want to give a quick shout out to Game Life Balance Australia, particularly AC at Game Life Balance Australia, and Chess from +7 Intelligence, which is another really cool podcast. And also a shout out to the Gonna Geek folks, especially Stargate Pioneer, Steven, the guy that runs the Gonna Geek Network, and Chris. All of those guys have given feedback that they wanted our show to come back. And like, I'll be honest, my day job has been insane. And I know that John's parenting has been insane. So like, I don't think either of us have been desperately trying to like find a way, claw our way back onto the podcast. Cause like, we're just really busy.
Yeah, I've definitely missed it, but it just, you know, the weeks just, they slip by crazy fast now. Like I can't believe it's already November, right? I mean, yeah. So I would have loved to have done it sooner, but it was just, there's just no time. There's just
right. No, same here. And there were occasionally times where I'd be like, well, I could message John. We could maybe fit it in this Thursday after this thing I have Wednesday night. And then this weekend I'm traveling for work and blah, blah. But like, you know, it was one of those like, no, our schedules are pretty packed. We can just maybe hold off another couple weeks. Unfortunately, that kind of spiraled out of control and we went 5 months without a new thing. But I wanted to say, go ahead.
As usual, winter has happened now in the Midwest. And so you will probably be seeing more of us because there's just not as much to do.
That is very true. But AC and Chess and all the Gonna Geek guys and everybody else that's listening. I mean, I got a Facebook message from a WGN listener that's been listening to me with Brian Noonan since our overnights in 2008 and has listened to Game Life Balance and likes our show. And I was like, oh my God. Like,
that's pretty awesome.
It was awesome. So, yeah, feel free to hit us up on Twitter, especially, but like, you can probably find us on Facebook and other places too. And we've got emails and stuff, but gameofbalance.us is our website. And we're back in some capacity. I would imagine we'll get another episode or two in the can before the end of the year.
I would think that we're probably going to be able to be a little more consistent now. Why don't we, if you're cool with it, why don't we finish up by me since we'll just make this episode all about me. We can talk about the games that I quickly kind of the stuff that I did while I was gone on maternity leave. And then like next episode, we can pick it up with what you've been doing for 5 months.
Why were you on maternity leave? And why are we only talking about you?
I was on paternity leave. Isn't maternity leave?
You kept saying maternity leave.
Am I supposed to be on maternity leave?
You're on paternity leave.
So I was on paternity leave.
Yeah.
I was on paternity leave. So I can just talk very briefly about the stuff that I did. And then next time, let's talk about me for a change.
Well, we did play one game together.
Did we? Did we play? Wait, what did we play together? It's been 5 months. It could have been anything.
We watched the Smash Brothers Ultimate trailer.
Oh, did we do that together? We did it at the same time.
Several times.
There were a couple of trailers, right?
Probably.
Okay. So yeah, that's a game that's coming out.
Also, I didn't get to say any of what I've been doing in my life.
Maybe did you not listen to what I just said? I said, let's finish up. I will put a bow on what I have done. Maybe we record in a week. You do your whole spiel of everything you've done in the past 5 months. We'll spend 15 minutes or whatever it's going to take you to get through it. And then we can start doing like normal episodes after that.
Let's every episode plan the second half of the episode about halfway into the episode.
I was thrown a curveball and that you had to be done at 9:15 tonight. So that was a curveball for me.
It's 9:15. Stop broadcast. Click.
You got me. You got me. I struck out. All right. That was strike one. Three strikes and you're out.
Because it's
the old ball.
Root for the Cubbies.
Yeah. I finished my Final Fantasy marathon.
Yeah. What? Except
for Final Fantasy 15.
When are you going to record more freaking reviews?
Well, let me tell you, with all this time that we've had to record our standard show,
it's easier when it's just you. Turn on the YouTube, hit record, and just be like, "This is what I thought of Final Fantasy 2. I didn't like the cowboy job class."
It's funny you say. Wait, I definitely didn't I'm secret class then, because I totally missed out on that. You say that, but in I think the 2 or 3 episodes that I've done that have been solo, I've always felt the need to like prepare for them. Is that not something you feel when you do things solo?
You did one solo episode.
In the 6 episodes that I have done
literally
solo,
did one on the original Final Fantasy.
I feel the need to like prepare. I feel like I did another episode that wasn't Final Fantasy related by myself as well. At least one, at least probably 6 more, I think, roughly.
In the chat, Stargate Pioneer says he doesn't remember the cowboy class either. You two must have been playing an outdated version.
Anyway, I always feel the need to actually prepare, like be professional. And I don't know why, because you certainly aren't. But that it's just like I feel like I need to prepare and like research and get my thoughts down so I don't sound like a rambling idiot like you do every time we record this podcast.
Yeah. That's how that works. So when are you going to come out with your next 13 Final Fantasy? So you just finished a marathon of well, not a marathon, because you started in January, right?
It was 1 through 12, skipping over 6.
Because you had just played it.
No, because we're going to play it for our Super NES project that I'm sure we will pick back up again now.
That's what our podcast is about, SNES Classic.
Is what it was about for a long time. So I skipped 6 with like under that reason. But I played different versions of stuff. So like Final Fantasy IV, I've been playing the remake for the past like 3 times I've played through that game. That 3D remake that came out on 3DS.
Yeah.
Well, I went back and I played the Super NES version of it this time. So I tried to kind of like vary it up a little bit to see, to challenge myself a little bit. I played the Zodiac Brave version of Final Fantasy 12.
How was it? Did they insert that storyline?
That game is phenomenal. The storyline is Star Wars. Like it doesn't have a good story.
Star Wars. I understood what was going on.
It is Star Wars. No, it's Star Wars. There's an evil empire. There's a race of beings that are pulling the strings behind the kind of like behind the scenes, just like the Sith do. I mean, it is literally Star Wars.
But bad.
So it's not as good. Yes, I will agree with you. The story is not the draw of that game. That game is phenomenal. And I stand by that. It is one of the best Final Fantasies to me. It is phenomenal. And the Zodiac Brave version of that game is better. It is a better version of that game. If you haven't played it, I would recommend playing it.
Why is it better?
The changes that they made were very good.
Just streamline some stuff?
Yeah. I can talk about it in detail because I really loved that game a lot. At another time. I'm not going to play through 13 again because I just played through it last year. I haven't decided if I'm going to play 13-2 again. I might. I've just played Lightning Returns like over this summer, so I don't need to play that again. The only game that I haven't played now is 15.
Oh,
that's the only one I haven't played.
My God.
And I'm so nervous to actually play that game because of how mixed everything that I've read about that game is. There are people that love that game that say it is one of the best in the entire series, and there are far more of them I feel like that I have read that have said that it is simply not a good game and that it is boring. So I'm kind of nervous to start it.
So you're saying they canceled the DLC because of you?
I didn't buy enough Final Fantasy 15. I should have bought more copies.
I will say, in Final Fantasy 15's defense, I have gone on Reddit and said a couple things I think fair but negative about Final Fantasy 15 in the Final Fantasy subreddit. Sure. And surprise, surprise, there are fanatical fans there. Many people have insisted that they patched the game in such a way several times and added some extra stuff.
They added a chapter of story. An entire chapter. So apparently the game is in a better state now that it is like more worthwhile.
Right. So, but the thing is, like when I reviewed it on this podcast, I complained a lot about it and I ranted a lot about it and I didn't really like it. And now if you play it and you love it, you may not necessarily be able to say, well, Cody, you were wrong, because you will fundamentally
play different versions of the game.
Right. Yeah. You'll be fundamentally having a completely different experience. So
my experience will be the more correct one.
Right.
However, I fall on that. Agreed. But anyway, that's like the next, down the road, probably over like the holidays, that's probably where I'm going to be at in terms of what I'm playing. I've played a lot of other stuff too over this break. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
You mentioned Dead Cells in the spreadsheet.
I beat Dead Cells.
What is
140 hours later, probably.
What is Dead Cells?
It's a roguelike side scroller that's phenomenal. We were playing it at MartinCon last year, the early access version of it.
Oh God.
It is phenomenal. Seriously, it is an incredible game. And I had probably done about 50 to 100 runs of it. Runs generally last upwards of an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And I finally completed it. And it was such a satisfying feeling and experience. That game is so good. It is so good.
Okay, I need to check that out.
You need to check it out, dude. It is so good.
Now, you also mentioned, and you mentioned that your time is fragmented and you've got to be able to pause and put it down after 15 minutes. But one of the other games you've been playing is a multiplayer game, which you can't pause in the middle of a match, Overwatch.
Yeah, the matches last like 5 to 10 minutes. So it feels abbreviated enough in a way where if I want to play it, I can jump into a game, play it. And also the stakes are so low that I will just exit out of a game if I need to, which I have done plenty of times when playing that game. Much to the detriment of my team, but frankly, I don't really care because I'm not taking that game super seriously. Like a game like Heroes of the Storm, where you sit down and you play for 45 minutes from like start to back. Like I haven't been able to play that much at all. I've maybe played 1 or 2 matches in the entire time since Henry was born. And I was playing that game a lot.
Yeah, you were. Well, all our friends were. I haven't played. I don't think I've played Heroes of the Storm since you were a kid. And
I love it. I love it. In the couple of games that I was able to play, it was excellent. But there's not time for games like that. I like World of Warcraft's expansion came out. I dabbled in that a little bit, only doing solo content where I wouldn't have to pay. I could like walk away from it. And I just got kind of bored with that. Because it's just not the same experience anymore. Yeah, like games are different for me now, for sure.
Yeah, that I understand what you're saying, and I'm looking away because I was just pulling up a quick little spreadsheet because we got a comment in the chat from Stargate Pioneer. I think John's hair is levels better than Cody's hair for once. John is truly the better Game Life Balance Australia podcaster. So there you go. You are the better Game Life Balance Australia podcaster.
I mean, that's like being the least smelly piece of poop. I mean, that's not really.
I will say, if you want a true video game podcast experience that is not likely to disappear randomly for 4 to 6 months,
4 to 6 months, you should check out Game Life Balance Australia. They're awesome.
Australia, which, by the way, and they were on episode, I don't know, like 20 or something, and we were in our episode 40s, so we were way more in the can. This is now episode 56 of our podcast, and they're on episode 71. So they have lapped us.
Hey, quality over quantity, baby.
Is that how that works? I will say the last couple episodes of our podcast was really good. The ones where I interviewed somebody and you weren't on them.
Oh, when I wasn't there?
Yeah.
It's weird. I thought all of those episodes were the worst.
Those are pretty good.
I didn't actually listen to them.
I want to mention quickly before I talk about the games I've been playing, because I've got a minute. Game Life Balance Australia has been putting out episodes very consistently every 2 weeks, all year round. They don't get tripped up like we do by having babies and things. And their most recent episode is episode 71, The Adventures of Peppers the Wonder Horse. In this episode, Red Dead Redemption 2 is out, and it's all Rob can think about. But before the boys take a deep dive into discussing that hot new release, they need to discuss the Vectrex, our featured console for this episode. If you haven't listened to the show, AC just has this like closet of video game consoles that there are only 4 copies of in the world.
Well, AC has a pipeline to Japan where all of these old out of print consoles exist. Like they exist at these mom and pop used video game stores up there, and some of the bigger used video game stores in Japan as well. But like that is where they go. That is where old consoles go. If you lose an old console, if you throw an old console away, it ends up in one of these Japanese stores.
I'm pretty sure that they have done entire episodes just making up the console and game
Mhm.
they're reviewing, and no one is the wiser.
I mean, back in the console crash of the 80s, right before that crash happened, like every company had some sort of video game console. Every single electronics company was making one and putting it out. So it makes sense that there's all these really obscure ones out there.
All right, well, whatever you say, traitor. I thought we were in America. I thought this was Game Life Balance, U.S. corporate power.
You're wearing a
Capitalism.
Nintendo shirt. That's a Japanese company.
It is. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
No, but it's a Nintendo New York shirt.
it doesn't.
So
It's a Japan. Listen. It doesn't matter.
it's a Japanese American shirt. You could say.
Japanese. It's sure.
All right.
Japan American.
And one other quick commercial break for commercials we're not getting paid for, but that's fine. On the official Gonna Geek show, GonnaGeek.com show number 261, gonna talk fall 2018 TV shows. Fall 2018 TV is in full swing. I wouldn't know. I don't do television. And fellow Gonna Geek Network member Michelle Ely joins the crew to discuss their thoughts on what they've seen so far. They'll talk the new, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you can check out this and more in the official GonnaGeek.com show, which is a great show, which I've been listening to again. It like stopped appearing on my podcast app for like a month, but I listened to so many shows I didn't realize it until like a month and a half later. And then I'm like, Steven, where is your show?
Yeah.
And now it is back. Are you watching any fall TV, Jonathan?
I'm a young Sheldon. I'm not a young Sheldon fan. I'm not watching any fall TV at all.
Casey and I, over the summer, watched every episode, well, over the year, watched every episode of Star Trek, the original series.
That's an undertaking. That's an undertaking. I've only seen a couple episodes, like a handful of episodes of that show. They are a product of their time, is what I would say about them.
What I would say, having watched now every episode, is that the quality varies dramatically.
Yeah.
There are nights where, because this was Casey's idea, for a little background, and after this little Star Trek tangent, we'll get back to games. For a little background, at our wedding, Casey's dad threw tribbles at us during his toast. This was all part of an elaborate pun that I'm not sure I even remember exactly, but that happened. And now we have all these tribbles literally like that were being thrown at us that somehow I caught. And I'm not very hand-eye coordination goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Goodly. I'm not goodly at the hand-eye coordination. Somehow caught them, thus not knocking wine into me or my bride, which was a minor miracle.
Impressive, sure.
We ended up with, and tribbles, as Stargate Pioneer mentions in the chat, tribbles procreate extensively. This is true. So we ended up with all these tribbles, and Casey has no idea what they are. So I'm like, we got to watch the Trouble of Tribbles. That's the Star Trek episode. Oh, good night, Stargate Pioneer. Thank you for tuning in. We had a viewer, a colleague of ours at the Gonna Geek Network. Very stand-up guy, except when he's sitting down. The Trouble with Tribbles is the original series Star Trek episode where the Enterprise encounters these aliens called Tribbles, and they're literally just little furballs.
They're gerbils. They're gerbils.
Sure. So I showed her the episode, and immediately after the episode, because it's a funny episode, she's like, that was amazing. I want to watch it again. Because Casey loves old cinema and old television and the old-timey stuff with that like kind of cute, quirky charm. And so we watched a couple other ones and just happened to pick good episodes. And then we just decided to watch them all. So we watched them. But it would be like, you know, we would get home from a long day of work, or it'd be a Friday, and we're like, all right, let's unwind with an episode of Star Trek. Sometimes it would be wildly entertaining, and Casey loved it, and we would talk about the funny antics, and Spock had good lines. Other times,
it would be like, horribly racist.
This is horrifying.
Yeah,
this is horrifying. You know, honestly, the racism is only prevalent in one or two episodes. It's by and large pretty conscious. It's the sexism that is just unbelievable. I mean, like
Kirk had sex with everything.
So that's a misnomer. He only hooks up with like 6 girls in this series.
I mean, he at least flirted with many of them then.
Yeah, well, what gets me is like they'll have an ambassador that they'll have to escort from one world to another to, you know, sign some international peace treaty, and she'll she'll transport onto the pad, and McCoy will be like Kirk will say like, I'm Captain Kirk, and he's like giving, flashing his beautiful eyes at her, and it's got an extreme close up, and then she'll say something like, it's nice to be aboard, Captain, and McCoy will be like, well, it's always nice to have on board a beautiful woman like you. And like, that's an actual thing that happens regularly. McCoy is a total sleazeball, but they'll all just talk to women like that, like women in power. So yeah, I don't know. Feminists, I wouldn't recommend Star Trek, the original series. But if you are curious about our thoughts, Casey and I decided to blog about our favorite and least favorite episodes. So there's 79 original series episodes. And we didn't have this intent in mind. We were just going to watch them for fun. And then like 2/3 the way through, Casey's like, we should do something with all this input. We should output something. It's like, all right, that's a very Casey thing to say. And so we started listing our favorite, least favorite episodes. And our list ended up being 40 episodes, which is
half of them,
more than half the show. And we tweaked them a little bit, and we messed around, and then we're like, well, we can do 4 different lists. We can do top 10 most entertaining episodes, just for sheer entertainment, top 10 worst episodes, top 10 most thought-provoking episodes. So they're good, but not necessarily like they're good sci-fi.
Sure.
There's good allegories and symbolism and things. And then the top 10 most, we're not sure what to do with this episodes. And that was the kind of stuff where it would be like, the central theme is that racism is really bad, but then the answer to solving a certain planet's problems is genocide.
Sure.
And you're like,
is that worse than racism or better?
Right? It's like there's something good here, and it's maybe interestingly done, but then something highly problematic happens. So we're doing that on my website, codygoff.com. It's just my first and last name.com. And we were going to do them weekly, but just like this podcast, we've been busy. So every month or so, we're releasing a new one. But you can like subscribe and get email updates on codygoff.com if you want to look for new updates and stuff. So that's the fall TV little tie-in with the GuineaGeek.com show, which you should check out. And I have one more thing to plug before I talk about video games. And I know we're like 20 minutes past when I said I had to stop. Mm-hmm. It's because I thought Casey would be home and we had to eat dinner, but apparently I've got another 10 minutes or so. I know you're tired. If you have
late for dinner, I don't know how you do it.
Me neither. Are you on Discord, John?
Yeah. I mean, I do not actively use it. I know of it. I have it downloaded, but I have no reason to use it right now.
How do you describe Discord?
It's a way to engage with groups, generally in the gaming scene, like to kind of play games with them mostly, but then also it has kind of expanded beyond a game playing app and is now like we want to talk about similar interests type app, as well as like organizing with communities that we like a lot of, like if you listen to a specific podcast, they may have a Discord channel where you would be expected to kind of like hang out there and talk about the podcast and interact with the creators of stuff.
Funny you should say that. And by chat, you mean it's a chat room, basically.
Yeah, but it can use voice, right? Yes. I mean, like it's a live chat room, but you can actually talk if you would like.
Yeah, there are text channels and audio channels
and voice channels.
So you don't have to be on voice. You can turn off your mic and everything, and you can just use it like in AOL Instant Messenger chat room. Oh, there's a dated reference,
like a group chat.
Yeah. Anyway, funny you should say that about the Discord, because Cody Goff had the bright idea that the Gonna Geek Network should have its own Discord server.
No. Yes?
Maybe.
No.
Perhaps.
I don't believe it.
There is a Gonna Geek Discord server. I have no idea how to find it.
Discord. So yeah, that's the other thing is I don't know how to use it. Right. So like well, I was like poking around on it, and I was like, all right, so I've got some communities that I follow online, like we all do. I'm gonna like join their Discord channel, and you go on there, and it's like punch in the address of the server, and it's not like what you'd think it would be, right? So it's not like our Discord server would be Discord : Gonna Geek Network. It's going to be something totally different than that. So you're doing it wrong by not telling people how to get there.
That's unfortunate, because I was just gonna be like, Gonna Geek has a Discord, you should join it. And it's, can you search on Discord for like Gonna Geek? If you join a server,
this is really good radio right here. This is
enter an instant invite below.
This is what people come to podcasts for.
Look, I don't know how to get there. Just go to gonnageek.com. I'm sure there's a link. I'll put a link in the show notes of this podcast as well. There will be ways to find it. I have no idea how to get there, but there is a Discord server, and in these, they call it a server, but it's just basically like the group, right? So there's a Gonna Geek server I'm on. There's a Wisecrack server I'm on, all this stuff. And in those, there are several text and voice channels. There is a text channel for each podcast on the Gonna Geek Network, including ours. So long story short, if you're a fan of this show and you want to interact with me, especially, and maybe John, if he, I didn't know you were, I feel like we talked about it, but maybe I might have dropped the ball. I'll create an instant invite for you, John. How's that?
Great. That's a great idea.
On my phone and doing it. I use it. The cool thing is I have a MacBook at work, and I have the Discord app installed on my MacBook, and I've got 2 monitors at work, so I've always got it up on the second monitor. So I engage pretty regularly, actually. What is your Discord name?
Listen, we can maybe discuss all this later. All I know is that it is complicated.
I just sent it to you in the chat on the sidebar. There you go. But there is a Game Life Balance chat room. It's like inactive because we're just telling you about it now. But join up, talk to us about games, and there's a channel for all the other podcasts on the Gonna Geek Network, so you can like talk TV and movies and Marvel stuff, and it's like a cool thing. I don't know if they have it in Australia, so I just made one room for Game Life Balance. It's not US or Australia specific.
Sure.
So if our Australian colleagues and our sister show in Australia are going to be on there, that'd be cool. But I don't know. I don't even know if anybody told them about it.
Well done.
Yeah. So you get for being in the future, Australia, because they are. Man, speaking of Australia, I really want to go to New Zealand. Do you know why?
Sheep?
No, I can get those here.
But not New Zealand sheep.
Sure. Any other guesses?
You own a pair of Velcro gloves for the sheep?
I'd like to go to New Zealand because this past Saturday, I spent my entire day participating in a 12-hour Lord of the Rings marathon movie.
Which is crazy. You and for anybody that knows you, you would be like the last person anyone would expect to do something like that.
In high school, my entire history with Lord of the Rings is I saw the first movie, hated it, and made fun of Lord of the Rings for the next 12 years of my life.
Sure.
That's my history. Then, earlier this year, my wife and my sister and a couple people wanted to start a Lord of the Rings book club. So I was like, all right, I've tried to read The Hobbit. I hated it. Let's try this Lord of the Rings thing. Loved it. You don't like Tolkien particularly, right?
I don't.
All right. Well, I found that I do. I think that the books are exceptional. Absolutely loved them. So it's like, all right. Then the ladies suggested a movie marathon. All right. We read all the books. So we talked about the books. Let's watch the movies now. All right. Let's give this another shot. Let's see if I like them now. So we watched the first movie. Turns out first movie still sucks. Like really bad. It's a bad movie.
We're talking Fellowship, right?
Fellowship of the Ring is a bad movie.
Sure.
Then we watched the Two Towers. It was new for me, so there was some novelty there. It's nice to see some things. Two Towers is basically a hour and 45-minute battle scene.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movies, actually. I enjoyed Fellowship even. I did, yeah.
No.
The extended cuts were just too much for me. They were just too long. But I liked the movies when I saw them in theaters.
Yeah. I don't know if we watched extended or not. We just had DVDs that said extended edition, so we think it automatically played that, but we
If
have
they
no
were
idea.
4 hours long each, they were probably the extended cuts.
They were pretty long.
Yeah.
Except we didn't have the extended third one, The Return of the King, which is unfortunate because that's the best one. So Return of the King, good. Okay, that was a good movie. Other two were really bad. I don't like the Lord of the Rings movies. We've solidified this. I'm glad I watched them. I recommend reading the books. Give them a shot.
Come here for your hottest Tolkien takes, everybody. That is, I don't know if you've heard of him, J.R.R. Tolkien, very famous author. He wrote some books.
What's weird is that Game Life Balance Australia has had this weird prescient presence in my life. So this is the last anecdote. It has to do with Lord of the Rings. So my Lord of the Rings book club / movie club is my sister and Casey and a couple other girls, and they are now playing Dungeons and Dragons with me because after LOTR, they're like, well,
I mean, guess what Dungeons and Dragons was, right? Like what its origin was.
Right, of course. Yeah. One of them mentioned, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and then my friend Allison is like, ooh, I have. That would be fun. Has anyone in blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I start dungeon mastering a thing. But like the week we were going to play Dungeons and Dragons on Game Life Balance Australia, they talked about a Dungeons and Dragons coin-op arcade game, which we love those games.
Oh yeah, you're talking about like the Myster one,
Shadows of Mystara, and the tower one.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, those are awesome arcade games.
They are awesome.
But AC talks about his horrible experience playing Dungeons and Dragons growing up because there were never any good dungeon masters and it was all about numbers and all this other stuff. But I was like, well, that's funny. He's making fun of this thing I'm about to do. Now, rewind to like 2 months before that. I interviewed the lead developer of Pro Wrestling X, which is this like legendary. It's the last episode of this podcast. You can go look it up. It's just like video game that's been in development for essentially 10 years. Some people are trying to create like the best wrestling game ever. And the day before I recorded this interview, AC went on and on because he found a used. I don't know how he came. This is like what AC does. AC will just be like, he'll be like, Rob, what'd you do this week? Oh, well, I punched a kangaroo in the face. Okay. And then Rob says, well, what'd you do, AC? And he'll be like, well, I stopped by this shop in Japan and I picked up 83 video games and 19 consoles that came from this company you've probably never heard of. Then I built an arcade cabinet and put 7 TVs in it and then wired them all together. So this week we'll be reviewing what happens when you use a Nintendo 64 controller on a GameCube that is running on PS2 hardware. And it's like, that's their show. It's great. Check it out. But he literally had somehow come across a copy of WrestleMania 19 for the GameCube, which is spelled WrestleMania X9 because WWE.
I don't remember that. I'm sure that was terrible, though.
It is the worst wrestling game possibly ever made.
Not the worst ever made. It's raw, right? It's
Attitude. You
Attitude,
mean No Mercy,
yeah.
Warzone. No. Warzone and Attitude were fine. They were bad.
Were not fine. They were awful.
Dude, this game, WrestleMania 19, is
I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm gonna have to
wrestling game. I'm telling you. So randomly, he gets this game and talks crap about it on his podcast and starts tweeting at me and insists on their podcast this is probably the best wrestling game ever made. Everyone loves wrestling games. I kid you not. Like the first, and you'll hear this if you listen to the episode, the first thing that the guy says, the lead developer of Pro Wrestling X, the first thing he says is, yeah, a couple great games came out, then we expected something wonderful. Then WrestleMania 19 came out, and everyone was furious because it's the worst wrestling game ever made. And I just thought that was funny because, they're just timing, man. It's funny.
Timing.
Did you join the Discord?
I have to get an invite first.
I put it in the chat, in the group chat.
I don't know how to do that on my phone. And listen, it's very complicated.
That is very complicated. I see you're flagging because you're a parent, and I told you we'd be done a half hour ago, which was a lie. You mentally prepared for like
most times when we record. This is very standard. I feel like for a recording of Game Life Balance US.
well,
I'm sad, and I really think we should record next week as well, because there's a lot that I want to talk about in terms of actual video games, and I really want to hear about your thoughts about things like Axiom Verge, which we didn't get to. So, and we should talk again sooner rather than later.
All right. Yes, we'll try. Next week is Thanksgiving, so it's a little tricky.
It's true. Maybe we'll have time like over the weekend or something. We should figure out another time soon to record.
We'll find another time soon. Yeah. And I said I'd talk about games, but I won't now. But as John mentioned, I'll tease for future episodes. I played all of Time Spinner, a side scroller that I backed on Kickstarter.
Right.
That I will talk about. I've played a lot of 20XX. It's kind of my go-to with Russian John, who's been on this show before. We play that a lot, and we still have not beaten it.
And I want to actually talk about that because I've never actually heard like a description of that game.
Oh man, I can't wait.
I know. I want to talk about that.
And also Axiom Verge, as John mentioned. I was going on a trip. I went to Belize on my honeymoon for 4 days. That was nice. We were on a little island. I just stared at water mostly for 4 days, and it was nice. But I wanted a Nintendo Switch game for the plane ride because I hadn't played games in a while, and I asked Hollow Knight or Axiom Verge, and it was like split. Most of our friends said Hollow Knight, actually, didn't they?
Yes.
You've played both.
I have only started Hollow Knight, and the opening of that game is very long, and it takes a very long time.
That's right. Well, I don't remember. No, Axiom Verge was on sale for like 10. It was like 30 cents off or something. So I went with that because the thing of the Switch games is like you can get either of those games on Steam sales probably for $5 or $6 off basically anytime, as long as you're patient. Nintendo Switch games don't go on sales like that. So like you're paying the full $15 for either of those. And but I really wanted a game, and I had some credit from like some old gift cards I had traded in or whatever. So I went with Axiom Verge, and it is a masterpiece that I will talk about in a future episode.
Yeah, I'm excited. Did you end up completing it?
I did. There was one part where I got stuck, and I just looked it up. I just went on GameFAQs. I was like, "What do you do after you get this item?" And it was just a dumb thing I missed, but it was very annoying. And
I can't wait to talk to you about it. Oh, because I remember. We'll talk about it.
Well, we're at that age where like, if you're stuck somewhere and it's not fun, like we don't have time to just like run around an entire map for, ad nauseum. So, and of course don't worry. Next time I'll talk about Stormblood because yes, I am still playing Final Fantasy 14. I now have 2 level 70 character classes, White Mage and Black Mage. Wow. I have a level 70 DPS and a level 70 healer and a level 61 tank.
You're going for one of each.
Maybe we'll see. I don't know, but I'm still enjoying that, but with reservations. So, many more games to come. I'm glad that you're back in the swing of things. We will endeavor to get more episodes out soon. I had a tentative crossover with Game Life Balance Australia. We might do later this month, but I think my schedule is not going to permit that. But John and I will get back on the saddle.
We are on. I don't think that's a thing they say.
We'll get back on the saddle next to each other with me riding in back.
Shotgun. You riding shotgun.
I want to ride in the back.
Shotgun on a horse.
Facing backwards, like in Mario Kart Double Dash, so I can throw the red shells behind me.
It's an underrated game.
It is. It's one of my favorite Mario Karts.
It actually is my favorite Mario Kart.
Is it? It might be my favorite Mario Kart.
It is.
I'm going to revise what I said and say that it's my favorite Mario Kart, and it was my favorite Mario Kart first. Yeah. Do you have the script pulled up to end the episode, or were you going to wing it?
I guess I can. Thank you for. No, I don't have it pulled. Hang on, I do have it pulled up.
You don't anymore need to read.
I don't anymore need to read. I just want to say to everybody, it's been a while since we've done this. Thank you for listening to the Game Life Balance U.S. podcast, the American edition of the Game Life Balance podcast. If you had fun, then tell one friend about our podcast. That is all we ask. You can learn more about Game Life Balance, including our sister show in Australia, at gamelifebalance.us, or check out Game Life Balance and lots of other geeky shows on the Gonna Geek Network at gonnageek.com.
Also, join us on the Discord server. I don't know
if you can figure out how.
And what's the last thing we do before we go? Every episode?
Is this like a Rick and Morty reference? Am I supposed to say wubba lubba dub dub?
No. You're on camera. Go. Do it.
Wait.
Stand up and drop your pants.
Oh, we're still doing that?
Yep.
I'm a married man now. I've been married. Can't do it anymore.
You just want me to hit stop broadcast.